I never once gave the Philippines a single thought throughout the majority of my life. Everything seemed to already be decided in terms of what the future was going to be like: a great marriage, great family, great job, and what I would consider as being a very fortunate life. I was only 5 years away from retirement when my wife divorced me. Kids already grown up and left home, but my wife had met someone else that she thought was going to make her life more exciting. I fell hard after that. 52 years old, and our plan to retire at 57 together and travel the world was now the furthest thing from my mind. Our assets were split down the middle. The legal fees took up more of that, and what looked like an amazing retirement only a few years away turned into a dream, and a dream alone. I wanted to retire at the same age, but the thought of being able to retire at home was now not within sight, and although I never even gave a second's worth of thought to the Philippines, I was introduced to the possibility of retiring there purely by chance. You might have seen those shows, the purpose of which seems to demean guys that go to different countries in search of love, and this particular show I was watching was following an American just like me who went to the Philippines in order to meet the girl he'd been speaking to online for a long time. It was his dream to bring her back to America, which he did, and while this show was meant to pour scorn on guys like that, I didn't see it that way. I saw it as a potential answer to the problems I was facing in my life. I began researching what the Philippines was about, learning about the country, the cost of living there, and how, although my retirement looked to be completely off the cards at the age that I planned originally, perhaps I even had enough money right now to be able to retire. I thought that sounded too good to be true. I didn't see how things could be so much more affordable somewhere else, because it wasn't anything I ever looked at before in my life. I just thought people were trying to sell a dream. I just thought that the information I was reading was from people who had done it themselves and were exaggerating everything. But I definitely thought it was worth going for a look to see how close to reality things actually were, compared to how everyone seemed to say they were. This was about 6 months after getting divorced. I had some time off work, and while I started out thinking about the Philippines, never thinking I would actually go and see it for myself, I just thought to myself one day, I'm going. What's the worst thing that could happen? I had just turned 53 years of age, and I was going to the Philippines for 3 weeks. This was in 2018, and I can remember going and thinking this was a bad idea. I'm going to get there, and I'm going to feel so uncomfortable and so out of place that I would wish to be anywhere else. The thing was, though, when I arrived in Manila, where I arranged to stay for the first 4 days of my time there, I felt a sense of calm come over me like I'd never felt before. I felt an immediate attraction to the country, the friendliness of the locals, the chaos that seemed to be somehow organized, and a complete slap in the face and then wake-up call that taught me more in those 3 weeks than I had learned throughout the whole of my life. There is a big world out there. There are lots of things out there that I wasn't aware of, and if you choose to take a different path and a different direction in life, then the ultimate goal of retirement is actually staring me right in the face immediately, as opposed to working for another 5 years and still not being where I was meant to be. Those 4 days in Manila gave me a whole different perspective. The wild nights I had along P. Burgos Street, the great hotel I stayed at in BGC, and the girl I met that made me understand that my wife leaving me could have been the best thing to ever happen to me. Manila was just the starting point of my vacation. I read online that an island called Cebu was very popular with people moving to the Philippines and also people vacationing there, and that's where I planned to go and spend a whole week. After that, my time was open to go anywhere that I pleased. But when I arrived in Cebu, I couldn't believe that I liked it even more than Manila, because I thought when I took off from Manila that I would miss it as soon as I left. But that's the thing about the Philippines. You can be somewhere that you really like. You can think that you'll never find anywhere else like it, and then you go somewhere else and you like it even more than the place you've just been, and that became a common recurrence for me. I spent a few days with a girl in Cebu, and it appeared that all those shows that I was referring to when I first started my story, the ones that demeaned guys who went to places like this to find a girlfriend or wife, were made purely to try to discourage people from taking this direction in life. That was what I thought. Imagine all those people watching all those shows, having all these negative opinions about the people that went to the Philippines, and the country of the Philippines itself. But in fact, when you were in the Philippines and you met people there, it was actually a lot more friendly and nice and welcoming and safe than people who produced those shows would lead you to believe. I spoke to one guy in Manila who had been living there for a long time, and he said his favourite place was Angeles City, and he told me about what happened there and what the place was like, but I didn't think I would actually go myself. The thing was, when I was in Cebu, I talked to another guy who said the same thing about Angeles City, and while I had just over a week left of my vacation, I decided I would go and have a look there. It was extremely wild, just like everybody said it was. It seemed to be an explosion of excitement on every corner, and I spent a great 5 days there as well. I finished off my vacation in Manila. I met the girl that I met originally again, and everything just seemed so effortless and fun, and I left the Philippines with the knowledge that what I had at this moment in time was enough money for me to retire right now and move to the Philippines. I couldn't believe it that this was possible, because at home I'd resigned myself to the fact that I was such a long way from retirement. It almost felt like it was a dream. The thing was, it wasn't a dream, it was reality, and the Philippines was within my reach right now. And when I got back home, the idea of not taking advantage of that and getting back to work and pushing ahead year after year, all of a sudden wasn't necessary anymore. And as soon as I was back, I immediately quit my job and started putting together a plan that would allow me to move to the Philippines as soon as I possibly could. I felt like I had a completely new lease on life. All of a sudden, my life made sense again. All of a sudden, the fact that my wife left me made sense, because it set me up for finding something even better than what I had envisaged when it came to our retirement. Because I was divorced, we sold our house and I hadn't yet bought another one, which was the plan. But what I did have was around about $400,000, and the plan was to just invest it and live off the income it would generate, knowing full well that that would be more than enough for a good life when I got to the Philippines. It took me about 3 months to put everything in order. Most of my friends thought I was crazy, my kids thought I was crazy, but they didn't see what the Philippines was like. They'd not been there and experienced it like I had, so I felt like I knew what I was doing, and if they went themselves, they too would understand. I was hoping to be able to convince them to come and visit me there. That was something that was high on my list. To be able to show off my new life to the people I cared about was something I was excited to do. It was at the start of 2019 when I finally set off for good. The Philippines came to me so suddenly that I didn't even need to take a step back and think about anything, because I felt so sure that this was the right decision. I'd planned to live in Cebu because that was the place I liked the most. When I was there on vacation, I spent the day looking at sorts of places I could live in that would fit my budget. I hoped to be able to find a reasonably sized one-bedroom unit with a balcony and a good view. I'd started to picture myself reading a book on the balcony, with a drink in one hand, the book in the other, and the thought of being able to live a life like that as opposed to going back and working, it was so exciting, and I can't even describe how exciting it was. You would have had to have lived it yourself to understand how great it was. I didn't have any ideas that I would get serious with a girl there. I knew that I could have a girlfriend if I wanted to, but I wasn't thinking that that was a reason for going there. I mean, it wasn't. The reason for going there was to take advantage of the differences in the cost of living and the fact that I could retire now as opposed to having to wait for years while continuing to work. I wasn't about to write anything off though, and if I met the right person, then I would see what came of it. It took me about a week of looking around to find the perfect place to live. I couldn't believe how affordable it really was as well. It was in quite a central part of Cebu, newly constructed within the past few years, and while I don't think the build quality was as good as it could have been or as it would have been back at home, I did have an issue occasionally being able to hear other people living in the adjoining condos, but it wasn't a big problem. Other than that, everything I was looking for was right there. I knew which visa I was going to be able to get, and I just needed to lock up some money and then I'm good to go. And I found someone to help me do that, and it was just coming together so well. I was really happy that I took the chance and went to visit the Philippines when I did, because I felt like it had made my life complete and taken my life down a very different path. As can happen to many people, I just finished reading a number of books in a series. I spent about a week reading all of them, just going out to the shops to buy things and coming back, and just being engrossed and having a wonderful time because of it. That was the thing I loved the most in retirement, just being able to lose myself in the things I wanted to do without things in my mind cropping up, jobs that I had to do, commitments that I'd already committed to and that I needed to think about. But now I was 100% focused on living the way I wanted to live and doing what I wanted to do. But the fact I spent a whole week just reading without any distractions was incredible. But also, I felt like I'd earned a really great night out, which I'd had a few of since I'd arrived, but I decided to just go and get a bit drunk and live a little. I'd met a few girls like this since being there, but this time when I met a girl who was 22 and yes, far younger than the sorts of girls I should have been looking for, I kind of overlooked that because I just felt so good when I was with her and when I met her. You can meet a girl like her and have a good time, but you can also meet a girl and really like her and have a good time, but want more and more. And this is kind of what it felt like when I met her. She said she worked a job, but she never really said what it was. But I think she was just looking to meet someone if I think about it, and if she met me and got serious with me, then she would stay with me, and she would have done the same for anyone else. Deep down, I knew that the age difference was unsustainable, but I continued moving head first into the relationship, and within 2 months she was already staying with me, and that made my life change considerably. On the one hand, it was fantastic to have her with me, because I had company. We did things together, it was fun. But I suppose on the other hand, it did remove that 100% freedom that I was living when I first arrived in the country. But I thought it was a worthwhile thing to do, because I felt so good when I was with her. She was incredible in every single way. She was really sweet and wild in all the right ways, and I guess it was halfway through 2019 when I was completely hooked on her, and the thought of not being able to spend the rest of my life with her started to scare me. So, I asked her if she wanted to get married. I know, asking a girl who was such a lot younger than I was to marry me was quite a stupid thing to do, but it was like she was everything to me, and she agreed to marry me, and we decided that we were going to spend the rest of our lives together. More like the rest of my life, and I knew exactly what my friends would have said to me back at home if they knew I was doing this, or what my kids would have said to me, or what anybody back in the West with that mindset would have told me. But I didn't care. I wanted to be happy, and she made me happy, so I went with it. I didn't know that a few things would change and some even crazier things would happen. I was just happy with her, and that was all that was important, because, in a way, she made my life in the Philippines complete. It's not that it wasn't complete before I was with her, but now I'm with her, it does feel like my life is complete, like there's nothing else that I need in order to be even happier than I already am. Nothing could have made me happier than I was at that point. And that's when we went far up north into the island to go and meet her family to discuss the marriage. The place where she was from was quite remote, very beautiful in terms of the surroundings, but the fact it was so far away from the city, but not too far away from a nice beach, I couldn't believe just how incredibly beautiful the country of the Philippines was. Her house was where her mother lived. Unfortunately, her father had passed away a long time ago, so her mother was a widow, and she had a younger brother who was 19 and an older brother who was 24. Both of her brothers had already left home and were working in the city, and her mother was living by herself. Her mother was 39 years old, and I know that meant she had her kids early, and it did feel a bit weird by the fact that her mother was 14 years older than me. But I didn't pay too close attention to that because I was just happy being together with my girlfriend, and the fact that she was showing me around where she was from made me feel good. When we finally arrived there, I will admit that when I saw her mother, I was blown away because she was equally as beautiful as my girlfriend was, and she just seemed so different to my girlfriend. Whereas my girlfriend was a lot more focused on modernity and material things, and just a general difference of generations, her mother seemed to be steeped in the ways of the past, not to an extreme, but to such a level where you could see the difference. It was our plan to stay there for around a week, because her brothers weren't there was a spare room available for us. And this house, it wasn't as bad or as basic as some of the other ones around. It was quite a bit better, but still basic. But the fact that we could have our own room was a positive. One thing that I did not expect, I mean nobody alive would have accepted something like this, but after we'd been there for 3 or 4 days, we'd been talking about the future and what we're going to do, and my girlfriend had gone out to see some friends very early in the morning, and I was still in bed. Her mother just walked into the room, and I sleep without clothes on, and there was no air conditioning in there, and I didn't have the blanket on because of the heat. So I quickly pulled it over myself and apologized, and her mother just smiled, saying, "Don't worry about it." Then she came and sat next to me on the bed, and I'm starting to feel like this is very weird, but she said, "I think my daughter is too young for you." I kind of looked at her and said, "Yes, I get that, but we like each other, and I feel that she loves me." But her mother said something that kind of made me wake up a bit, even though I wasn't asleep, but it kind of made me concentrate more. She said, "I think you'll be better if you broke it off with her, because she should find someone that's closer to her age." She said she understands what her daughter is doing because she, and she's talking about herself here, went to work in Angeles City quite a long time ago after her husband died, and she spent time working in some of the bars there while her parents looked after her kids. She said that maybe, if the girls like that, they don't actually love you. Maybe you should find someone more close to your age. Here I am thinking I've never heard or seen or witnessed anything as crazy as this in my entire life. And I'm older than 50. My girlfriend's mother just told me she used to work in the bars of Angeles City after her husband died, and went on to say that her daughter's too young for me, telling me I should find someone closer in age to me. Without having time to think about what was going on, she initiated something, and instead of me pushing back and thinking this is insane, I allowed it to happen. And she said, "As soon as I saw you, I felt like you were the person that I've been waiting for my whole life, because I never had a chance to meet anyone real when I worked in the bars, because the people I met never wanted to spend their lives with me." She said, "I think I've been waiting for someone like you, and I think we get on better together than you would with her." I was so dumbfounded, like this is the most crazy thing I've ever experienced. But as a guy who was in his 50s, who lived quite a boring life up until this point, I was reveling in how sane the whole thing actually was, and I was loving every single thing about it. I just told her that that was crazy, and I think we should just forget about this. But she said, "You should break it off with my daughter." And she said, "I'm not telling you to move in with me or stay with me right now, but if you think about it, we're a lot more suitable for each other." She was really beautiful. And I don't understand though, it felt so weird. If she wanted someone, she didn't have her kids living with her, so she could have gone to find them. But I think for her, or at least what she said when I started questioning her, was that if she went back to where she was before, she wouldn't meet a real person. She wanted something real, and she saw me and how I behaved, and I don't know if it was just wild, but I was loving every second of it. When my girlfriend came back, I felt really weird, as you would expect, but her mother just acted like absolutely nothing had happened, and while we were going to be there for a few more days, nothing else happened, but all I could think about wasn't my girlfriend, let's just say that. When we got back to Cebu, I just didn't feel like I wanted to get married to my girlfriend anymore, because I felt a lot bigger connection with her mother. I know it sounds strange and weird to think about, but after we'd been back for a week, I just told her, "I don't think it's going to work. I think you're too young for me. I'm really sorry, but I'll happily give you a few $1,000s so you can get back on your feet," or whatever it is that I said. And she was really upset, and I was upset, but she left, and I should have left it at that. But all I could think about was going back up and telling her mother that I was no longer with her, and just let's see what happens. I'm lucky that I have quite a good memory when it comes to directions, so I thought I could just go to the general vicinity of the area where she lived, and about 5 days after breaking it off with my girlfriend, probably just under 2 weeks since I left, I returned to the area, and it did take me about an hour of walking around to find the right place, and her mother was just there, sitting outside with a few friends, and she looked at me, and I said, "Can we talk?" Her friends left, and she said yes, and I went to sit down, and I said, "Okay, I broke it off with her. I agreed that she was too young for me, and what you said was right, and I just came back here to tell you. I wanted to know if you had anything you wanted to say or anything you wanted to do." She just took me inside and said thank you for coming back, and it was clear that at least what I thought, she wanted me, and just being wanted made me want her, and I spent the night with her. It felt really strange though, because this is where she lived. This was where her life was. She wasn't interested in the city or leaving where she was. She just said, "If you want to spend a bit of time with me here, let's see how things go. You're more than welcome to." I just felt this huge draw to her. So I said, "How about you go to Cebu with me? Go to the city where I live. We can spend a week there. Things go okay, then maybe I can come back and spend a week here, and we can take it from there." I didn't have any of my things with me to stay for a long time, so I would need to go back anyway. She actually agreed. And that day, we went to Cebu together. And I think it was just the fact it was so different and so exciting and so strange at the same time. Like a kind of warped dream that some people might have. But it didn't feel like that at the time, it felt normal. But looking back, I admit that it was kind of absurd. That week we spent at my place was amazing. I think the fact that she was very open and honest about everything that she did in her life when she met me made everything easier because she wasn't trying to hide anything. The fact that she told me the truth straight away and she just seemed to really like me. She really seemed to like me, and I can't describe how that made me feel because it made me feel great. She just said that she didn't really like being in such a busy place and she prefers where she's from. She never had the chance to meet someone like me, and that was always her dream. Always was her dream because she didn't want to meet someone local. She wanted someone who had a little bit more money, who could give her a better life. She was open about it, but she wasn't saying this without admitting that she wanted to love someone and actually be happy with them, not just money. And she felt like when she saw me that everything was exactly like she'd always dreamed of having in her life. After that week, we went to go up and stay at her place. I took some of my things with me, but I really struggled, as I did when I was there originally, because there was no air conditioning. It was very basic, and I was used to modern creature comforts. After the week, she wanted me to stay longer. I wanted to stay longer, so I paid to have some air conditioning installed, which made it a lot more comfortable. And I also bought a more comfortable bed because I was struggling to sleep on the floor. I kind of just stayed with her for days and weeks and then a few months. And it was actually about 2 months after staying with her, and I've not been back to the city, still paying the rent on my place, when her daughter made a surprise visit. And when she saw me there with her mother, she had quite a scare. She talked with her mother for about an hour and she looked very upset about things, but it wasn't as weird as I thought it was going to be. They didn't even fall out with each other or say they didn't want to see each other again. And her daughter even talked to me and just said, "I hope you can take care of her very well because she likes you." I felt a bit of a relief because I'd seen her before and I'd known her before, and now it was weird, but it was one of those things that you just sort of get on with. After those 2 months, we decided to get married, and we didn't waste any time. I got everything I needed to do that in order to get married, and after another 6 weeks, I think it was, we were married, about to go away together to a resort on Boracay. It was there when we started talking about the future, where we were going to live, what we were going to do, and I know we should have discussed this beforehand, but it appeared for her she just wanted to be where she was from, and I just wanted to be where she was. So we talked about what we would need to do to be able to live there, and it was apparent that to live there we would need to have something a bit more substantial than what she had, so we discussed building our own place. By the end of our time on Boracay, we'd already agreed that I would take about 30% of my investments to buy a piece of land and build a place to live, and also buy a car so we could get about more easily. I should still have enough money to live on together with her, and we'll have a nice place to live. I knew what the rules were, and I knew that once I paid, that money would be long gone and there was no hopes of ever getting it back. But I was good with that because I was just in this dream world, doing things that I never thought I could do. It was around the end of 2019 when we started building. But then we had the problem of COVID coming around and the construction had to halt, so we had to spend more time at her place, which was difficult. And also, my investments tanked when COVID happened, and I made the huge error to panic sell. Not right at the bottom, but pretty much as close to the bottom as you could have got. I sold everything and had cash in the bank thinking it was going to drop lower and I could buy back in, but it continued to go up. So I'd taken out about 110,000 out of my 400,000 for the land and the house. The 290,000 was now only 180,000, which is what I got when I sold everything, and that was such a huge mistake. But I still reckoned that when the house was ready and set up, if I got 7 or 8% on what I had, it should still be okay. By the end of 2020, our house was constructed, finally. I'd reinvested and just got over the fact that I made some stupid mistakes and panic sold, and did all the kinds of things that you're not meant to do in a situation like that. And when we moved into the house, it was like all the suffering that we went through living at her place throughout many, many months. It had all been worth it because our place was incredible. We had a car as well, so getting about was a lot easier, and everything started out great. We were still in the middle of COVID, so things weren't back to normal yet, but I did think life was great, and I was very excited to have COVID behind us finally, and then we could just get on with the business of living life. When we moved into the house, that's when we started talking about other opportunities that we could do. While the money that I had was still giving me just about enough that we could live an okay life on. Compared to how she used to live before, then she was having a lot better life. But it wasn't quite as good as I expected things to be, and if I hadn't panic sold, things would have been fine. But we started thinking about any ideas that we could do just to make a bit of money, but also to occupy our time. Where this was very different to the city. There weren't as many things to do. We couldn't just go out to a club or a nice restaurant or a bar or anything really, because there wasn't that much around. So we thought having something to do to keep ourselves occupied would be good. My wife liked the idea of opening up a small shop at the foot of our land. Just something small, and it wouldn't cost a lot of money to do. So we did decide to spend about $10,000 building this little place and stocking it with things. And we got one of the local girls to work. It made money, but just about enough money to pay for the girl that was working there, so we weren't really getting anything back from it, which was a bit upsetting because I was hoping for even just $100 a month out of it. That would have been good, but because we had to pay her, well, it wasn't actually bringing anything in, so it would have been better just leaving it invested. We started thinking about something else that we could do, something that we could work at and not just own, and something that could make some more money. We spent time looking around at all the different businesses that seemed to be the ones that did the best, and the thing that I was drawn to was a kind of construction yard, selling construction material like concrete and sand and things along those lines. I'd worked in a very similar industry for my job, not selling stuff, but I thought that made me a good candidate because I knew exactly what was what. It wasn't like we just jumped at it straight away, and there were a few places like this, and they always seemed to be owned by people with money as opposed to people without, so it seemed like it could be a good thing to do. I did an awful lot of research, understood what kind of investments we would need to make, and worked out how much money we thought we were going to make. And I took a kind of spur of the moment decision one day, after a lot of thinking about it, but it was kind of spur of the moment, to sell all my investments again, bring the money to the Philippines, buy a plot of land, construct a building and an office from where we could work from, and have enough land for other things that we could sell. Concrete blocks and everything that people would use to build houses. That's what we wanted to sell. In total, I invested about $120,000 into this business, which included the land and the building and all the things we were going to sell, and it was my hope to bring in about $1,500 to $2,000 a month. I probably had at that time about $40,000 left, and I was angry with myself that I panic sold and I was doing this because I panic sold and I wanted to replace the income, and we both thought this was a great idea. Just at the back end of COVID, when everything is getting reopened, everything is looking more promising, and life is feeling like it's amazing, at the same time as also a little bit scary, because we don't know what the future holds. But we opened and the business became operational. It quickly became clear that both of us had actually miscalculated how much we expected to make from this. While people were buying things from us and coming into the business, perhaps on a good month, and this is across the next 3 or 4 months, but on a good month, we might make $250, which meant that the little bit of money I've got left is going down and it's being eaten into. I used some of that to buy more stock, thinking if we had more things and more variety, we could make more money. But only a year after opening, that's when I was down to about $5,000, and the business was only bringing in at best $400 a month, and at worst, not even $200. I was starting to really worry about this. When you're a few years away from this moment, you always think something will come good, something will work, something will be right. But when you get to the point when you think things are going to be okay, and things aren't okay, they're just getting worse, that's when it came over me that I somehow invested all my money into a house and a business, and we can't sell it. I didn't have enough money to be able to remain in the Philippines, and while my wife and I are okay together, the thought of not being together was grating on us. I was still a long way away from any kind of pension, and after a few weeks of just being really upset and concerned about things, I had to make the really unfortunate decision to leave the Philippines and go back home, and go back to work. It was heartbreaking when I left. I was still madly in love with my wife. She said she was in love with me, and we just said we would see each other again very soon. I went back home, broken and deflated, and what was meant to be something that gave us a good existence in the Philippines had become nothing more than a nightmare. That was at the start of 2023 when I had to go back home. I spoke to my wife every day and I hadn't seen her since then. It's nearly been 3 years, and I believe I'm now in a position to finally go back to the Philippines to be with her and spend the money I've managed to save before I'm due my Social Security. I should be able to claim my Social Security at 62, While it won't be the full amount, it will be enough for us to live an okay life, which is all I ever wanted to do since I had to leave was to get back with her and be living with her again. She's waited for me. She's always been there for me, although we haven't seen each other for 3 years, and I worked 3 grueling years to be able to get back to the point in time where we could be together again. I didn't want to have to send any money for my wife because she was able to run the business, and that provided enough for her to live on. And to be able to have an extra $400 a month on top of what I have now, and on top of Social Security when I get it, at least that's something. I would say to everybody, my biggest mistake was panic selling when my investments tanked and not just holding on, and then realizing that my income was very reduced because of this, and trying to do a business and not understanding how much it would actually make. I'll be back in the Philippines soon, and I can't wait because my wife has waited for me. She's always been there for me, and she's not asked for any money from me since I left. So there are good ones out there, even if you meet them in a really strange way. I would say don't be like me and have to lose 3 years of your life not being able to stay with the love of your life because of stupid decisions you made. But I suppose I'm luckier than many people because at least she's there waiting for me when I get back, while many people lost everything and she kept everything that they had that they were supposed to get back, but they never did. I hold on to these little things as a way to say at least I don't have it as bad as other people. But I could have done if I wasn't lucky to have found the right one. But I was still stupid to do the things I did, and I will admit that. So don't do what I did, and you should be okay in the Philippines.